Hello, welcome to entry number 6. I think I left off kind of in the midst of my first experience into foster care. I was about 13 years old. I think I was almost 14 by the time I actually made it to that really good foster home. Yeah, and that was just that was good stuff. The first year, I think my grandfather on my mother's side was in the hospital and dying, and my mother wanted to take me down to Key West, to Florida, to kind of do the funeral stuff and the cremation stuff and all of that. And so I went back and, well, I took the trip to Florida, and then I believe I went straight back to my family that summer. Now my stepsister, at this point, I do believe had left the country. She had a half sister in Ireland and worked things out to get the hell out of Dodge. She'd kind of had enough of things. She never came back. She went and she never came back. And this is some 25 years later. So I'll get into a little bit about her, I think, in some later videos. She too was a wonderful girl. I have maintained contact with her, somewhat. I wouldn't say maintained contact with her, but I did actually recently have a phone conversation with her that was just, it was really cool. It was really refreshing. She was my best friend when we were little. I mean, her and I met when we were, I guess I was four going on 5, and she was 3 going on 4. So we were pretty little. My first close sibling memories are of her. We got along real well. She's very, very intelligent. Ended up with a doctorate. So anyway, I came back, and things at home were pretty different. My older sister was getting into the relationship that she is in now, and I kind of got back home and just kind of screwed everything up again. Drove my mom crazy. I think drove my sisters crazy. I mean, I'm pretty sure it was worse than it was before I went into foster care. If I remember correctly, my mother had actually switched up her work schedule because she couldn't be, they couldn't leave me alone. I was well old enough to be left at home alone, but I just did whatever I wanted to do. Again, I wasn't a violent person. I didn't deliberately. I don't know. I shouldn't say I didn't deliberately. That doesn't really fit. I didn't regularly or actively go out trying to hurt or hit people. I wasn't that type. But I was a little thief. I was a little liar. I was a little cheat. I stole from my sisters. I stole from everybody. I didn't care. I did whatever the fuck I wanted to. And when things didn't go my way, I whined and cried about it. And the worst part was my mother would come along and she'd save me. When I'd get myself into situations that, I should have just been left to my own devices. Kale, you got yourself into this one. Get yourself out of it. Sorry, bud. You need to learn your lesson here. But I wasn't. I was constantly rescued. And so I just continued to yeah. Anyway, I ended up back in foster care by the end of 8th grade, 9th grade. Fortunately, back at that foster home I was at before. But by this time, I had already started smoking pot and had done some drinking. I was never a real drinker in high school. I didn't like it. I didn't like losing motor function. I didn't like the whole deal with drinking back then. Was like, what do people drink for? This is, I can't move properly. And I was very much into martial arts when I was in high school. A buddy of mine and I got very much into Muay Thai and kickboxing. And I had started in martial arts when I was, I think, 4 or 5. I actually have a picture in the house of me in my gi way back then. It wasn't anything that was, it's not like I had driving coach parents and I was some sort of master MMA guy. Don't get me wrong. But for high school, I was just really into weightlifting and fitness. And I think I started lifting weights in like 5th grade or something like that because the high school was right up the road. Anyway, I kind of got off topic there. I'll kind of just wrap things up when it comes to foster care. I screwed things up at that really good foster home I was in. Like I said, I had started smoking pot and was hanging out with some, the wrong kids to be hanging out with. And I got into the medicine cabinet at my foster home and took a whole bunch of stuff. I had a friend over. A long-time friend. In a previous video I think I'd mentioned a guy that was staying with us through college, a family friend, but it was actually his little brother, had the same name as me, and we had known each other since diapers. But anyway, his dad lived nearby where my foster home was, and we ended up getting to hang out some, and we broke into the medicine cabinet and took a whole bunch of antidepressants and Ritalin and just a whole bunch of shit. Oh my God, we're lucky we didn't kill ourselves. It was a very scary, painful, miserable night. And I remember that I was sick for about a month or two after that. And I was still sick by the time I was at the second foster home after I had to leave Wendy's. My good foster home. But those are mistakes, and I'm going to just comment that I trying not to use names. I know all that stuff is pretty accessible just by kind of doing a little homework, but those are accidents. Anyway, so I ended up in a couple of foster homes briefly that were temporary. The last one I was in was one of the bad ones you hear about. It was one of the bad ones. The kids were there. It was me and I think 3 or 4 other kids and an infant. And it was just, I'm not going to get into too much detail, I don't think. It was rough. It was miserable. It was pretty bad. Something happened there with one of the daughters of the foster parent, and her boyfriend came over with a gun, I guess, and there was this big stink, and my mom caught wind of it and was like, nope, we're just going to yank you out. They put me in so they could essentially take me out whenever they wanted. Didn't go right back home. I think I went to a youth shelter for a little while and screwed that up. I have this brand on my arm. I think you can see it. I'll get up close. There's a burn right here on my arm that I did in that shelter. Oh man, I'll never forget that dumbass move. Got myself kicked out of that shelter, and I don't really remember kind of the events leading up to. I ended up in the rehab center there at a hospital nearby, and things escalated quickly, and I was offered a trip. So I'm out of time. Catch the next one. I'll tell you all about that trip. That's the most influential part of my life. Not a day goes by that things that happened there don't go through my mind. So catch the next one. Thanks for listening.